You eat pieces of shit for breakfast? Welcome in to the Bro 4 Squad podcast, where we are just a bunch of bros drinking beer and talking movies. I am your host, the Mayor, Jeff Hornacek. Thank you so much for joining us for episode 178 and the movie discussion tonight. And before we dive into it, let's go around and meet the fellow bro, our legal counsel, Ronnie Cycli. Now, Ronnie, I've been thinking about this a lot. And in Return of the Jedi, when the gang is on Endor and Chewie accidentally gets into that trap of the hanging meat carcass and the Ewoks sort of pseudo-enslave the gang, is that technically entrapment, and could we sue them, or what does Endor law say about this sort of thing?
Oh, Endor, no, like it's basically you break it, you bought it type law. I mean, they're very old school. They take no responsibility. You actually have to sign a liability waiver when you enter Endor. So... yeah, so it's not even about Chewbacca. I mean, even the Empire, no one is above their laws. So when you still have the injuries and death happening to stormtroopers, there was no claims. You know, insurance wasn't going to cover them because it's clearly in the contract that any injury on Endor will not be covered. So yeah, I mean, sorry, Chewie has no claim, and honestly, no one does. So if you go to Endor, just be mindful and watch your step.
Ugh. That's the Icha law, right?
That's exactly right.
Just picturing an Ewok in like a suit in court is fucking hilarious.
I'd watch that.
100%. Make like a legal drama, and every time the Ewok talks, there's like subtitles on the bottom, but everyone else can understand him.
But you know who we need, and I know it's not related to Star Wars at all, is Bo the Bear from the Muppets. For some reason, he's the judge.
Okay, order of the court, okay.
God damn, this is $1 billion idea. Right?
Picturing him in the judge robe is pretty hilarious too.
Well, we've had Muppet Star Wars crossovers plenty of times in history, especially on the Muppet Show.
In the Disney universe now.
Yeah, so I think
it can basically be like a Texas Justice show. Like each week there can be a different like the Ewok judge can be like the prosecutor. There can just be a different plaintiff every week.
I would watch. I mean, absolutely would watch this show.
100%. You can give me one 20-minute show of this a week. Get us drunk. I could probably come up with 4 or 5 episodes for you right now.
This is the thing. When I watch movies, I'm like, I could write something better than this. Maybe we should. This is a sign.
We don't have the time. We're too lazy.
Yeah.
All right, here on the Bro 4 Squad, we start every episode off with the most important thing in any bro's life, and that is chess day. And tonight, Cycli and I have each brought a topic to the table to discuss in the world of movies. Cycli, why don't you go first? This is something that we've both discussed many a time, but now we're finally going to give it the attention that it deserves. So what is your chess day topic for tonight?
Yeah, I think we've talked about it plenty on the pod about like kind of our age demographic and the era we grew up in. It's easy to see where our favorite movies are. Like why is a movie like Phantom Menace on some of our top 100s? It's not because it's a good movie. It's because we were at the right age, right, when that movie came out to appreciate it. And what else was common that was coming out constantly when we were growing up in the 90s? And it was sports movies. It was kids sports movies. It was movies with famous athletes. You know, it could have been a ragtag group of kids like in The Big Green or Mighty Ducks. It could have been movies like Shazam or Space Jam, where we got famous athletes, or like Mike. So, you know, to me, it's interesting that this was such a generation defining genre.
Mm-hmm.
And it made it through about the early 2000s. And I don't know if it's older and maybe I'm not paying attention, but I feel like I would notice. It just feels like these movies have just not only died down, they're completely extinct. Yeah. We you know, and so for me, it's like, you know, what I wanted to talk about is kind of like what our theories on why that happened. Now, I will say we did get a Mighty Ducks show, Game Changers or Game Breakers or whatever that was called, on Disney Plus last year. And Banner and I are on record of saying we enjoyed it. So maybe that's a return. Maybe, I don't know. But to be honest, after 20 years, it's crazy to me that we were getting pumped every year with these movies. So first of all, you can talk about some of your favorites, growing up.
Yeah, I think it cannot be overstated. And again, whenever you look back, that's the great thing about doing these top 100 lists. sometimes I think we might romanticize a certain portion of our lives in movies, like maybe misremember it a certain way. But I think when you look at the sheer numbers and the quality that the kids sports movie, quote unquote, had in the early 90s to, I think Like Mike is the definitive end of this in 2002. Um, it's kind of unbelievable. Like these are movies where literally every single weekend we would go to Blockbuster and we would get like two or three movies. I would be able to get like a new release and then like one or two old ones because they were like $1 each. And I can almost guarantee you that one of these movies was in the latter portion of my Blockbuster haul every single weekend. And I have a few on a list that I found on IMDb. It's like the top 10 kids sports movies of the 90s. But Cycly, I think you can speak to this too. Sort of the overarching theme, and I think what I loved about them so much as a kid was that we were represented in, like, we would see kids in movies doing things that were outlandish, but it just gave us this sense of like, dude, I could fucking pitch for the Chicago Cubs.
Yeah.
Did you not like try to break your arm intentionally after you saw Rookie of the Year?
Of course. Like it was like I remember I was 10 years old and I had a broken arm. And I just remember being like, what if it comes like
dude,
comes
I remember
back
being
strong.
so jealous when kids would show up with a cast. I'm like, you motherfucker.
Dude, that guy's gonna be sick. Like, I mean, but it wasn't even just about being on a sports team. It was about like angels in the outfield. Like you're just a part of something bigger than yourself. And I think that was what was like sold to us as kids is either, you're downtrodden, no one believes in you and you can make it happen, or there's something bigger at hand. And even the smallest person, even a child, can make an impact. And obviously I'm being really deep and philosophical about these movies, but I'm like,
but they
there's
shaped
something
me
to
in a
that.
way, really. They really did.
Yeah. And I think that's amazing. And so to me, I'm wondering, why would that stop? Or, because I think that's a great message to kids, albeit unrealistically, but, aren't that what kids' movies are about, in general?
But like, what is I'm trying, and again, obviously we're not in the demographic that's being marketed to, but we're aware of pretty much every movie that comes out.
Right.
What is the equivalent, like The Sandlot, Mighty Ducks, Space Jam, Angels in the Outfield, Little Giants,
Big Green.
Like the Disney Channel original movies, like Brink, even.
I mean, Double Teamed, Brink, like there was
Luck
the
of the Irish.
Book of the Irish, yeah.
What's the equivalent to these movies now? Because I feel like what kids are going to see are like the Disney Pixar animated fare. There's really hardly any live action kids movies to go see. I feel like I don't know why they've sort of veered away from that.
And if you're listening and you have kids and you feel like we're missing some stuff, let us know. But like you said, we're not unaware of what movies are out there just because we're not seeing them. And I'm sure there's plenty of kids movies out there that just don't. They're probably not made in the same way. I think we treat kids now, and we kind of discussed this last week about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies, where they used to honestly kind of treat kids with a little respect in the sense of we didn't mind giving, darker themes or serious plots, albeit with ridiculous, characters. But it feels to me that now we kind of treat kids as a gimmick, like just entertain them for an hour and a half, show them something bright and shiny,
right?
And give the parents, a break, which obviously parents need breaks. But, I felt like when I was watching a movie when I was a kid, like anyone could enjoy that.
And I don't want to sound all crotchety like back in my day, because there are still a lot of really, really good kids movies coming out. Like,
yeah,
the stuff Pixar's doing, not only have they not missed a beat, but they've probably upped their game and have made 4-quadrant movies like for the past decade that are pretty astonishing.
And they respect the kids. I would give that to, they're the exception, I think.
They do. But I think, like you said, these movies, we kind of saw ourselves on screen. Like when I watched The Mighty Ducks, and maybe this is just super niche and what I connected with, but rollerblading was a really big thing, like when I was growing up, and I'm sure same with you. So like to see these kids like rollerblading and then Gordon Bombay like recruits them to play on this hockey team, I'm like, that's fucking cool, man. That could happen where I'm at.
Yeah. And I, growing up where we grew up, I never played hockey. I never had zero interest in playing hockey. And I love the Mighty Ducks movies. I remember going to the movies and cheering like I was in the stands, like it was a real game. I remember what I was like I was with one of my, my 8-year-old best friends when I was little, right? Like we were tiny and we were so excited. I remember jumping out of my seat and like freaking out when they scored a goal. Like it was real life.
when that score bing, bong,
Oh
bing,
my.
bing, bong, bing, comes
Yeah,
on, like
hairs
it's
on the
hard.
neck.
Yeah, it's hard to not get up to your seat. And I'll say this, and I honestly think I would stick to this. If they started releasing movies like this now in theaters, I would go support them. Now that might get me put on a watch list for buying these tickets when I don't have a kid. They might be like, "Well, sir, why do you need to be in the
I
theater?"
just need to believe in something.
That's really sad, actually. Um, but I would support these, man, and I don't think we're getting like what were some of the sports movies you kind of referenced as to like the closest equivalent to this type of fare we get now? It's like the Netflix trash, right?
Mhm.
It's
Well, there's like the Kevin. I mean, that's not a kids movie, but the Kevin James Home Team. Like what is that? No one's thinking that's going to be good. Like you're not. I mean, we can talk about kids sports movies, but I'll reference just sports movies in general. Like had a lot more depth to them. Like we can talk about League of Their Own and Miracle, and hundreds of others that came before those. But I mean, that's a larger conversation about sports movies.
but
I
like
don't know. Have
fictional sports movies, I
fiction,
think,
yeah,
is
but
a genre that's kind of gone away.
yeah, exactly. But I mean, I don't know if every story has been told, right? Like, or what. But I was going to break down, I kind of did a little research. I want to see what other people had to say on the topic, and I want to see what you think about it.
Okay.
And so a couple of them were this. Um, the formula only goes so far. They've made so many movies, right? Especially in the 90s, early 2000s, and Disney Channel original movies. Is it that they've just made a movie about every sport out there and with any child scenario, and it's just like it's done? Is it the first time we can look at a genre and just be like, no, there's nothing left to tell?
The only reason I want to say no is that like they were you would think in terms of quantity that with like baseball specifically, they would be trying to get blood out of a stone because between The Sandlot, Angels in the Outfield, The Rookie of the Year,
Hmm.
and Little Big League, like that's four movies that came out in a span of what, 2 years?
Yeah,
Two
that's
years.
insane.
2 years, yeah. 93 and 94, all those movies came out. And I remember like habitually seeing all of them.
Yeah,
So maybe baseball is just the one that is the most fertile for this stuff. But like even like the hockey ones, like if you would have told me that in America they made three movies about a youth hockey team and they all did really well at the box office, so
right.
much so
It
that it ended up,
warranted three of them. They didn't make three, big greens, right? Like,
yeah. So I don't know. I think that like maybe as kids it was just a different sell back at like 25 years ago, back in the mid 90s because I don't know what, and I don't want to be the fucking old guy. Like, well, we were more active back when like, whatever, dude. Kids are way smarter today than we were. They can figure shit out that even we can't as adults. But I think there was something to like playing little league baseball, playing youth soccer, rollerblading in the street with your friends. That like these movies had a different connection to us
yeah.
than they would now. And case in point, I think as much as it's a pretty much a shitty movie. Space Jam: A New Legacy kind of dips into that. Like LeBron's connection with his son is done through his son's basically ability to like engineer and create an app or like a mobile game. Just because
Yeah.
like youth interests shift. Like we're into different stuff than our parents were, and they were into different stuff than their parents were, and maybe the movies reflect that.
So I agree with you completely. I actually think it is more to do with kids and their interests. And now you see kids movies all the time. The kids always have a phone or an iPad or
Hmm.
something. They're into something that the parents don't even understand. I actually disagree with the original reasoning that I saw online that was like, oh, this the ragtag team of kids, that story has been told. Well, one, I've always been complaining about Hollywood just regurgitates shit, right? Like, why all of a sudden would this be where Hollywood draws the line,
This is where they
right?
dig in.
Like, you know what? No, we're not going to make another sports movie. And two, again, who are these movies made for? They're not made for me and you today. They were made for me and you 25 years ago. So you're telling me the story of a ragtag group of kids, misfit kids, isn't relevant to an 8-year-old right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, has it been told 1,000 times to me? But it's a kids movie. You can tell the same story again and again because it's new to the kids. So I don't buy that theory that the story's been told. Again, Hollywood has proven that does not stop them. So I think it's more your latter, your assessment. Like it's just that kids maybe aren't as into that kind of story.
Well, and do you remember in high school when we were in, I believe it was our junior year English class, when our English teacher, one of my favorite, if not my favorite teacher of all time, let us watch Star Wars A New Hope, but we had to analyze it through all the literary archetypes that exist.
Yeah.
And you realize like how many of these tropes, they're just rehashed in different
Oh yeah.
ways. So to sit here and be like, well, that idea has been done before. Like, dude, if you think that all Hollywood is doing is cranking out original ideas, then like you just woke up from a fucking cryo freeze
Right.
because that's not what's happening. And I'm not
And it's
complaining,
funny,
but it
right?
works.
But that's what's funny as I looked up a couple theories on different websites, including Reddit and a few other, entertainment sites, and that was a common one was that there's been every story's been told. And I'm like, okay, yeah, just look at what's at the box office right now. Our eighth installment of Spider-Man. Oh, and another Batman movie's coming
Right.
out, and I'm not complaining. I love it, but don't tell me people don't pay to see what they've seen.
And a
I mean,
Doctor Strange movie where he's literally just going to, and trust me, that this is my most anticipated film of the year probably, but where he's just going to multiverse travel through every old movie that we've seen.
right, and we're not complaining. That's the thing. So
Hell
that
no.
to me is a terrible argument to make. Um, so here's one of my theories outside of I like what you said. Another is because the other part of this isn't just the ragtag group of kids. It's the famous athletes we used to get who were in these movies.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, I mean, think of the 90s movies with all the basketball players and like you said, baseball players. Like you've got real players in these movies. Um,
Like Mike, dude. Like there's like 7 or 8
yeah.
actual NBA players that cameo in that.
So part of it to me, then I have another question. Is it now that these athletes, these famous, players, back in the 90s, your brand, there was no internet, right? Like you didn't have Twitter and Insta and like the ability to access your fans immediately. Like you can send a message to your favorite player tomorrow. Like that's crazy. Back then, was that the way you increased your brand? Was that how Michael Jordan became more than a basketball player? And is it now that these athletes don't need, like some of them do some entertainment, obviously, but they don't need to be in every movie or a TV show to sell themselves now because they are a walking advertisement with social media.
That's
And
a
I
really
wonder
good
if
point,
that's part of
actually.
it.
Yeah, I mean brand management, like whether you it's a sad reality, like that's what these guys have to do is manage their brand. And it's not necessary to do it. You know, you don't need to access your fan base through film anymore because social media is probably a better medium to do that. So yeah, I guess that could definitely be a part of it. Because like I remember when like the concept of Kazam, and I know Shaq is kind of like a unicorn in the sense that like you can't really use him as a template for anyone else to work off of. But the concept of him playing, and he was in Steel also. So, but him playing a genie in a movie, even though we probably all knew it was going to be awful as a kid, that was like must see for me. If an athlete did that now, I feel like he would be just shat on. Like, who's an athlete that could even attempt that and not get completely roasted?
Yeah, absolutely. And I
I
think
can't
that's the
think of
thing.
one.
Get paid $10 million or $5 million to be in a movie that's going to get panned and made fun of. And everyone, or just don't do that and get paid $10 million to sell a bottle of water on Twitter.
Yeah, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Right.
Like, if I'm the guy's agent, I'm like, you can't do the fucking movie, man. we, it
Yeah.
actually might hurt you in like contract negotiations, things like that.
Yeah. So I think to me I think it's probably a combination of the two we both have said because I mean, again, the famous athletes don't really impact the pure kids movies, but they did flow through each other all the time in the 90s. So I think those two can combine themselves. And I mean, yeah, and like you said too, I mean, this could be leading to a whole other discussion. Some of these sports leagues are very protective of their privacy now or their trademarks. And again, maybe they don't need to sell to movies anymore. Like you talk about with like Major League Baseball not, showing their highlights on Twitter. Um, Maybe they just feel like there's more money into it for themselves. So I don't know. I think there's a combination of things, but at the end of the day, I think all of those points could add up to something, but Hollywood's gonna sell to kids the same shit all the time. So I wouldn't be surprised if one day it came back.
Yeah, I think kids do ultimately drive markets because if they want something, their parents will buy it for them. And I'm sure there's market research out there that we just are too stupid to look at or aren't aware of, but there clearly is not an appetite for this type of film anymore. And it kind of sucks because me as an adult would still love to see these movies. But I think we can say, maybe not definitively, but Like Mike was kind of the end of this genre. I don't know what the significance of that being the movie, but it's difficult to find a mainstream release after 2002 when Like Mike came out that sort of fits this mold.
Yeah,
for whatever reason.
Absolutely. So, I mean, last question: would you like, you have kids one day or whatever? Would you want the genre to come back, or do you feel like you're, is that something you feel like I can just share these movies with if I ever did have a kid?
I was gonna say, can I be really selfish and say like I kind of want this to be our generation's thing?
No, I like that.
Like this is like our contribution to cinema, basically, and people might laugh at that, but fuck you, because I think these films are significant to my childhood, and they're fun as shit.
Yes. I mean, that's the thing. Like the 80s were known for like random slashers or, that was very unique. And it took 25 years for it to really come back. So I'm with you, though. I'm unless you're going to sell me something kind of new, I'm like, I like that fact that we still have that ability to look back at these movies as classics and appreciate them because they're not coming out every year now. I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's like a unique thing to the 90s. And I obviously you look at movies age, in differing ways, but these age like poorly, but also really well, I think, because there's like an innocence to them. Like they thought they were inspirational, and to me they were, but other people will look at them and be like, this is really fucking ridiculous that you
it's hard to go back.
Yeah. Like this movie pumped you up as a kid. Like, yeah, man, you kidding me?
But that's the thing. It's when you see it and then grow up with it and look back, you still like it. But if you never saw The Big Green or The Mighty Ducks and for the first time watched it today, of course you'd be like, what the hell?
Like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
How does this elicit any emotion from you?
Yeah. So if you have any thoughts, comment below. But I'd love to hear other theories that I'm sure we didn't get to.
But if you disagree, honestly, you're just a cake eater.
Mouth breather.
I know we talked about this extensively on the Mighty Ducks, we haven't done the first one, but the D2 commentary, that cake eater is some insult.
Yeah. Which I'm like, I'm sorry for liking cake. I don't know. I think it's supposed to be an insult about are they calling the kid fucking rich and hoity-toity or something that he eats cake, or are they saying he's fat? I don't know.
Didn't they say it to someone though just when they sided with Gordon Bombay?
Yeah, are you part of the I don't know.
They use it in very sometimes that's the application, but then other times they'll use it and I'm like, I don't think that's the right use of cake eater. But
if you know what cake eater is, please let us know.
Please comment below, because I feel like they just use it anytime they want to call. It's like fuckface, like they just say it to people.
Yeah, fuckface makes sense. I don't know what it means, but it makes sense.
All right, good trip down memory lane. My chest day topic, definitely shifting gears here. So cyclically, as we know, we are in the age of the streaming wars, right? I alone, and I'm not saying this as a badge of honor, I'm saying this because I'm embarrassed by it, but I alone subscribe to Netflix, Disney Plus, Peacock, Hulu, Paramount Plus, Amazon Prime.
Mr. Moneybags over here.
That's six right there. And you kind of have to, because
you do. I have the same.
And I will say this, the one that I'm closest to dropping is Paramount Plus. To me, it serves the least value. They have the worst original content by far.
So I think you and I have talked about this, and I will be dropping Paramount Plus at the end of the month, but purely because I am subscribed to it because they, for some reason, won the rights to U.S. World Cup qualifying away games.
Okay.
So half of the World Cup qualifiers are obviously away games. So I did not want to miss half of the games. So, which is interesting because you would think Paramount Plus would be about movies.
Right. And they have a decent library on there, but original content, I think the biggest thing they've come out with is that movie Infinite with Mark Wahlberg, which was not good. And they have some I'm a Big Brother fan, so when that airs in the summer, I might resubscribe, but I think they are losing the streaming wars right now. And that leads me into this next piece of news, because Paramount Viacom had an investor call about, as this episode's dropping, it was probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, but they kind of mirrored that Disney investor call from about 14 months ago, where they announced all their big Marvel releases and all the other things coming to Disney Plus, Star Wars related, basically to help obviously boost the stock price, but also subscribers, would sort of run symbiotically to their streaming service. And Cycly, here is what Paramount decided to do as a good idea. So this comes to us from Deadline.com. Paramount announced a number of upcoming projects for their streaming service and beyond. This news included big plans for fan-favorite franchises like Halo, Sonic the Hedgehog, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and South Park. But the one announcement that caught everyone by surprise was the one from director J.J. Abrams, who shared that a fourth Star Trek movie was not only in the works, but scheduled to be released December 22nd, 2023, and the whole cast, of course minus the late Anton Yelchin, of the Starship Enterprise will be returning. However, it looks like Abrams forgot to let the cast know. Apparently, most, if not all, of the teams for the major players were completely in the dark about the announcement from the director that has been trying to get a fourth feature film off the ground. According to The Hollywood Reporter, the teams that represent Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, Zoe Saldana, Carl Urban, John Cho, and Simon Pegg, so like literally all of the main cast members, were not aware that this iteration of Star Trek 4 was in the works. They were surprised that their clients' names were used to reveal the film to the Paramount investors. And they were especially surprised that their clients are meant to start shooting this movie before the end of the year. So, Cycly, you're a lawyer.
Yeah.
What is the amount of leverage now that Paramount has? Because this says Chris Pine is now in early contract negotiations to star in the fourth film. How much leverage does Paramount have coming to the table in these contract talks after, I guess first, or whatever order you want to answer this in, what the fuck is this on Paramount's part? And then we can get to the leverage piece for the negotiations.
So I mean, like, there's two scenarios in my head, like, because this is literally what I do for a living is contract negotiations. So I crack up about this because one, it's either incompetence and they were trying to.
Don't you feel bad for their legal teams when you read this? You know they're not involved in any of this decision.
Yeah, no, that happens to me all the time. I'm like, who did what now? Like, what? Why didn't someone call our office? Like, either incompetence or they felt like they had to wow, like you said, investors, or there's really not much to be excited about in general. So they got to give them something, which is funny because, like, I don't mind. I like the Star Trek movies, but I'm like, that's your big wow moment. Like, that's what you're giving to investors. So clearly they need to, like, give them something. But
right.
What I think is likely, and again, I haven't read anything about this, but I could see a scenario where these actors didn't know they were already under contract, because a lot of these negotiations could take place without their involvement, because most of them will have agents, or maybe when they sign the contract for the third one, like, they didn't realize, someone didn't read fine print, or, because you have to imagine it's one end of the spectrum, because the audacity to just announce it with confidence that it's going to happen when you haven't entered into discussion or you don't have actual legal leverage is asinine and embarrassing. And so, like you said, where's the leverage? Because unless they have them under contract right now, and the actors need to get new agents because they haven't been, communicating clearly, then what are we doing here?
Is there any chance that, and obviously someone again dropped the ball here, but I'm trying to rationalize this because on the surface, people get paid too much money to do something this stupid in these positions. Is there any chance that with these investor calls, that this information is something that Paramount thought maybe wouldn't go public, or at least until they had time to negotiate with the talent? Or is the sole purpose of these calls for this information to get out to inherently affect the stock price, do you think?
I feel it's to affect the stock price. I'd have to imagine, because there's no way that's not getting out.
Yeah.
We live in an age where it's impossible, honestly, unless you have everyone under NDA and with significant punishment.
Do you think it was something Paramount thought they could bring up and then negotiate, and the management teams for the talent wouldn't say anything publicly? Like, what?
Unless they think it puts them in a position to where these actors won't get work now because these other, industries or studios are assuming they're under contract. Like, right, like you put it out there, like, no, they're under contract. The actor, they're
Right.
just trying to renegotiate or something. Like, again, but none of this actually helps you in the negotiation room. Right?
And also,
like,
they gave a release date for the project. Like, who's to say you're gonna? Because these movies typically take a long time. Well, principal photography not too long, but then there's always additional photography, right?
yeah,
Like,
that's not far away. You're in 3/4 of a year away.
yeah. So you really think that you can just like grab Chris Pine like in the next year? Like, he has probably a lot of fucking projects.
Yeah, that's the hardest part about. I mean, these movies with these big actors is the scheduling. Like to get with these sequels, and there's a lot of projects. It just takes one overlapping calendar to mess everything up. So I have to wonder and hope that or not hope. I'm not rooting for anyone, but again, did these actors sign a contract and not realize what they were signing up for?
Yeah, and that would seem to make the most sense. But and again, maybe their management teams aren't aware of it. But for them to come out and say that this is news to them as well, it's just like how do you even start the discussion to negotiate this deal with Chris Pine after you've told the whole world he's coming back?
Yeah, someone messed up.
And again, if he doesn't return for Star Trek 4 and they have to recast them and it's a new Star Trek, the sun will rise tomorrow, right? Like, I think it'll still make money, but it just, to me, it's almost like a microcosm of I think the stock price actually dipped after this, if I remember reading it correctly, because it just shows how do you have faith in this company?
But also, again, is this what I'm not a bad? I like Star Trek a lot, but is this really what? If I was an investor, whoa, you're bringing a fourth Star Trek, I feel confident. I mean, it could be a really good movie, but that wouldn't move me at all. So I think it's really leaning on this studio is desperate for something.
Yeah, and the first to the point, specifically the point of dollars and cents. I actually like the Star Trek movies a lot as well. I love Star Trek Into Darkness with Benedict Cumberbatch, and I don't know why people hate that movie because to me it's fucking incredible. But they're not big money makers. They all have budgets of around 150 to 200 million, and none of them have grossed more than 400 million. So after production and advertising, or publicity and advertising, they're probably making 80 to 100 million dollars each, which for tentpole films like this, I mean, that sounds like a lot, but if that's your bell cow, if that's the one you're hanging your streaming service on, I don't know, man, we got to figure something else out.
Yeah, it's exactly. I mean, was thinking when I I heard your topic, I was maybe think of all these sequels, you would shock anyone. But last week, didn't Banner in our group text bring up Avatar 4? Was that you? It was
Yes.
Avatar 4.
Yeah, I think it was
what?
Thurmond, actually. Yeah.
Oh, it was it's could you imagine? First of all, we still don't know why those two are coming out. Not to change the subject, but it just makes me laugh when clearly communication is at fault here. Wait, what?
Yeah, at such
fourth
a high
Star
level,
Trek.
Yeah, exactly. At such a high level where these guys are in charge of so many things and make so much money, it's kind of scary how this stuff can happen sometimes.
Someone's nephew got a job because the mom begged her brother to get him a job or something at the studio and fucked everything up.
One of the only I don't know. Chime in below though your guys' thoughts at home on the Paramount Plus situation. Again, this I'm probably not going to keep Paramount Plus, or at least cancel it for a few months for the time being anyway, but this sort of just further drives that home. I have too many streaming services as is. This is a pretty easy one for me to cut out of the rotation. So
yeah. Worst case, you sign up for a month because there's something you really want to see, and then you just cancel it again.
They did have that one Jeremy Renner show that came out. Let me look up what it is, but with Kyle Chandler.
I don't think
that was their one original show. It was Mayor of Kingstown.
Oh, I had heard that. Yeah,
that looked it looked decent, but
it's the same thing I did with Showtime. I got Showtime, watched Dexter, and immediately unsubscribed.
Yeah,
that's not a good way to do business.
That's why the Netflix is upping their prices, because I think the binge model is a big part of it. They can't get you week to week, so I got to get 3 months worth of a subscription from you. All right, moving on to our protein shake, the second part of our show where we go around and talk about what is in our cup, also known as what have we watched lately. Cycling, I got a bit of a light one today. Four things. How many do you have?
Yeah, I have 4 probably.
You just
I
made that
mean,
up.
I don't know if you are listing some of the. I know you and I share a couple things we've been watching, so don't
Yeah,
know
I
if
don't
you
have
have.
the shows we're watching currently
Okay.
on here, but of course we can talk about those. Why don't
Yeah,
you go?
then I have about 5. Okay, yeah. So, first one I'm going to talk about is one I haven't been talking about because I decided to watch it today for the first time, and I'm interested to see what you think because I don't think you've watched it yet, but just the whole idea about it. So, I started BelAir, the
Wow,
new show on Peacock.
this looks so bad.
So if you haven't heard of it, it is a dramatization of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So it's the same concept, troubled kid from Philly, or not really troubled kid, a kid who gets into trouble in Philly, moves in with his rich aunt and uncle and cousins in Bel-Air.
All the same names as the other show, right?
Same names. But he's not really a butler. They call him a house manager. He's Jeffrey. The same, cast of characters and everything like that. The sister Hillary and Ashley and Carlton.
Is Jazzy Jeff in it? Because that would seem like
Yeah, so he's not like he's not in the sense that we know Jazzy Jeff. Like he is just a guy named his nickname is Jazz, and they become friends when Will goes out to Bel Air. So
okay.
the first thing I thought when I saw heard about it, I was like, who asked for this? I like, is this something And you and I love Fresh Prince.
Oh yeah.
I can literally just love to quote it. It is it breaks the fourth wall all the time. If you've never watched Fresh Prince, maybe it was a little before your time or not. Like the comedy holds, and there's topics in those episodes that are still relevant today. So I have such a soft spot for Fresh Prince, and I don't know why I kept seeing the ads. I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'll watch the first episode. So first of all, I found out, and most of you probably know this, but shows that I didn't, that this concept actually came from a YouTube video like 3 years ago.
I think I did hear that actually.
Yeah, where like some indie like filmmaker, or maybe it was someone's class project, but he made a trailer for a would-be dramatic interpretation of Fresh Prince. And
Yeah.
supposedly Will Smith saw it and he was like, wow, I love this idea. Let's do it. So that's where it came from. You know what? I'm going to tell you, I expected to hate it. I don't. I
Really?
don't. Is it the best thing I've ever seen? Absolutely not. Um, but it's really funny to watch something where you can see how easy it would have been to tell the story as a drama, as a serious, situation that this kid is in. Carlton is much more of an adversary in this so far. Hillary has a little more ambition, has a little more brains on her. Um, it's just, again, I ended up watching the second episode because I wouldn't say I was into it, but I was intrigued enough to keep going.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this, I'm enjoying it. It's just 2 episodes. There's a lot more depth to it already than How I Met Your Father. So if we want to compare it to something that's bringing back, or trying to relate to an old show. I do think, it's dramatic, for not in the drama sense. It's just a little over the top at scenes, but
Is it?
I'm liking it.
I guess what I don't really understand, and this isn't like a complaint. It's just I'm trying to figure out is this for me? Is this for fans of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, or do you think it's if you watch it and you were expecting any? Obviously, it's tonally not akin to that, but would you dislike it, or do you think it is more geared for you?
I don't think it. I don't think you have any. You don't need any relation to the show Fresh Prince.
Okay.
Again, it's the same concept. They do get into more of what happened in Philly, and understanding why he couldn't stay in Philly. It wasn't oh, he got in trouble and she's worried about him. He literally needed to leave Philly for his safety. And so, again, was intrigued because I am such a fan of Fresh Prince, but I went in knowing this was not going to be the same. So I think it could stand on its own and have no relation to the show outside of it's just based on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how long this would be successful though, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like I'm
Well,
not
so has
sure.
it's ran one full season so far?
No, I think they're only 4 episodes in, or
Oh,
4 or
really?
5.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know why I thought it was Peacock markets the hell out of it.
Yeah, they haven't. That's why because I've been watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine on that, and every commercial break is
And Will
BelAir.
Smith is maybe not creatively involved with the show, but he was part of developing it, right? Or do they
I
just give
think
him
he's an executive producer. I
I'm wondering
think.
if they just give him that credit though because he owns the IP or at least was
Yeah,
part of it.
probably. Like I know he's the one who like advocated for it. Now I don't know what his actual involvement in is. And I will say the acting is really good. The writing is, I mean, well done. It's believable. Like this, like again, it's more believable in understanding like why Will is there and Carlton's dislike or animosity to Will.
Mhm.
And there's, they're playing again. I mean, there's no way you can. It's hard to like fill in, be from Philip Banks and fill those shoes. But like, they're playing that early on as like he's running for district attorney and Will's suspicious that like, hey, you brought me here to just look good in your election
Right.
when you're
Oh,
helping
okay.
kids.
Interesting.
There's a lot of discomfort and not a lot of trust going on. So again, it's stuff the sitcom did in the 90s, but they just didn't because it was a sitcom in 22 minutes. They just didn't really go deep into those issues. So I'm going to keep watching. They're about 40-minute episodes. We'll see. I don't know if I'm going to be along for the ride, throughout, but first two episodes have me liking it much more than I thought.
I'm intrigued. So I kind of want to check back in with you in like 2 weeks and see how far into it you got.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay, I watched. So this, I don't understand how has happened, but there's at least two different titles. I can't think of the name of the second one, but if I logged onto the service, I would find it in a second. That are like new and they're on HBO Max and Hulu. And Hulu is owned like it's part of the Disney family, and HBO Max is Warner Brothers. So I don't understand how licensing works apparently because this is kind of confusing to me. But I watched the late 2021 release, The Kingsman, on HBO Max, which is the prequel to both The Kingsman Secret Service and Kingsman: The Golden Circle, which are two movies that I really, really liked. And Banner's probably the biggest Kingsman head on the pod. And I love those movies. They're directed by Matthew Vaughn. And here the movie is directed by Matthew Vaughn as well, that he also has a writing credit on it. And this, Cycly, are you familiar with the Kingsman movies at all, like the premise?
Yeah, I've seen the first one.
Okay. So the first one is about like this like higher level of British intelligence, sort of even higher than MI6. And then the second one, it's kind of the same thing, but they also involve the American version of them, of the Kingsmen. Now, The King's Man, the prequel starring Ray Fiennes, is basically like prior to the entire agency getting set up. And I think that calling it The King's Man is kind of marketing it as a false bill of goods. Because essentially what this is like sort of an Inglorious Bastards version of revisionist history around what started World War I and like this evil villain kind of like pulling the strings to get all of these countries in the world to fight each other, and then this sort of elite group stopping them. And then I won't spoil what happens at the end. But
I saw the end credit scene.
Okay, you did?
Because Twitter is like making fun of it, like because it is ridiculous.
It is. But I don't know what it was. People have been kind of bashing this movie. I really, really enjoyed it. Like to me, it was really unique, and there were some really interesting like shot fight scenes. And Rhys Ifans plays Rasputin in the movie, which first off, to me is like one of the most interesting people that's ever existed. Like if even half the shit we've heard about him is true.
Now the song is stuck in my head, and it's going to be stuck in my head. Rasputin. But
Rhys Ifans is just like so over the top in this as Rasputin that he's just like, it's like he's going for like a Daniel Day-Lewis level performance, and even though he doesn't hit the mark, it's entertaining as fuck to watch.
Does he bang every chick like Rasputin would, or like?
He bangs, I'll just say a lot of people in the movie.
Well, okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. So this thing,
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
I had a lot of fun with it, and the revisionist history part of it, where it like sort of reimagines how certain things played out, leading to and involving World War One, is a little ridiculous and over the top. But I think if you enjoy those elements in Inglourious Bastards, you'll have a lot of fun with this.
I was just about to say that. I was like, it's not like we haven't seen, bastardization of the past to create a new story. I again, without spoiling it and having seen the end credit scene, it's a credit scene, right?
I believe so. Yeah,
the scene I'm talking about. Yeah. It made me. I will tell you. I was like, "What is this movie?" It made me want to watch it.
Yeah,
because it is a ridiculous scene, but I like the idea of revisionist history. It's kind of fun to change your story on that. So like, I was probably people were making fun of it because it is kind of ridiculous, but I was like, all right, I'm intrigued.
It's entertaining, man. There are some slower moments, but I don't know. It's just like a really unique type of film. But I do think that if you're going into this expecting anything that feels like a Kingsman movie, you're really not going to get too much of that. Like the fight scenes that Matthew Vaughn films kind of have his unique visual style, where he has like really good coverage. It's almost like Michael Bay, but it's less like intrusive. Like Michael Bay wants to he wants the camera to feel like you're on a fucking like roller coaster. Matthew Vaughn gets really good coverage. Like he does like some 360 cams. Like you can always see the fighting really well.
So you're saying it's Michael Bay meets Quentin Tarantino is what I'm hearing. The revisionist history meets.
Put that on the Blu-ray. Yeah, that's my review, my official review of it.
I'm like, if I saw that Michael Bay meets Quentin Tarantino, I'd be like, I don't know how I feel about this.
And there's a lot of characters in it, and they're all played by like pretty good and recognizable actors, but they're like a lot of them are not in it very long. So you'll see a lot of guys you'll recognize, but they're just because there's so many characters coming in and out of the story, you don't get to spend too much time with them. But I don't know, man, I had a lot of fun with it. And
I might check this out. I was already intrigued because of that scene, but now hearing you say that.
Yeah, the flaws that people point out in it, like they're definitely not unfounded, but I just had so much fun with it, and it was unique enough of a movie that I was able to look past most of it. Definitely not a perfect film, but it's one I liked a lot. So,
Sweet.
The Kingsman, and I know you're a Ralph Fiennes guy because of Harry Potter.
Oh yeah, I mean he's a great actor outside of that, but yes, he did a great Voldemort.
He's awesome in this. And a guy that I don't think gets enough credit, Djimon Hounsou from, of course, like Gladiator and Blood Diamond. And
he's fantastic, yeah.
He's got a pretty big role in this, and I don't think ever gets enough credit. He's so fucking good.
He needs. I'm sure there's a movie where he's a leading man, but it always feels like he's such a good side, character that just brings a lot of depth to it.
Yeah, I totally agree. He just adds to everything he's in. All right, what else did you watch?
Finished Love Is Blind. Well, technically, there's a reunion episode this Friday, so I mean, we're gonna get a lot of we're gonna be sipping some tea during that episode.
All right.
Yeah. So I know I've talked about it in the last couple of weeks, the ridiculousness of this show and reality show, and the concept again. If you're not familiar, if you haven't listened the last couple of weeks, it's a reality show where people want to find love, and they have a week to basically meet people, but behind closed doors, and they never get to actually see the person. They're not allowed to describe themselves. And then if they fall in love with this person, they get engaged, and then they have 3 weeks to get married, but they get to see each other once they get engaged. And so, of course, there's always big
reveals.
Is
usually when the thing falls apart, I would have.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so does the person look like what they thought or whatever? And it's supposed to be like, is love blind, right? You fell in love without seeing them. Can you stay in love after? So I won't say too long on this because we finished the show. It was the wedding episodes. So there was like four or five couples getting married. And this season, again, if you have been watching, is some of the most ridiculous cast of characters and people, especially compared to the show on the first season. Again, it is reality television. It is trash. It is what you would expect. I will say I was very proud of a couple people, different couples.
I feel like a rarity for these shows.
Well, because I was proud because a couple people who were clearly not being treated well in their relationships and over the time period.
Right.
When the time came and they seemed like they were ones who were in love with their partner. Their partner didn't appreciate them. A couple people took decided that
Jerry
like, hey,
Maguire type
yeah,
love.
like I'm not being valued as much as I should, and I'm choosing myself. Like, there were a couple people that did that I was very proud of.
Good for
Um,
them.
yeah. So I predicted only one couple would get married. Um, I was wrong, but not by much. But yeah, again, if you need trash TV, and I've said this every week, if you want to feel better about yourself, you
Always.
should go watch Love Is Blind. It's
I have a
absolutely stupid.
I have a show that's filling this void for me right now, but I'm interested to check out Love Is Blind. We started Too Hot to Handle, and one
Oh yeah.
episode in, my wife was like, "I can't do this." Not, I actually don't think it wasn't trashy enough, I think.
That one I tried watching with my wife too, and I was like, I think there's like a game to some of these others. That one was just like, why am I watching these people?
Yeah, it wasn't that interesting. But Love Is Blind is one that I know you and Boehner kind of swear by. So I didn't know they did
it's as trash as trash gets.
I didn't know they did the reunion episodes, though. I do always love those, where like they get everyone back, give everybody like a few weeks to kind of gather their thoughts and.
Oh, it's been actually like a year. So
Oh,
like
really?
either we'll see if some of these people who got married are still together, or again, because now they've all seen the show, and the thing is, like, people are talking shit about each other, right? Like, or shit about their partners,
Oh, wow.
and like, so that's what I'm excited about. Like,
Yeah, now they've been able to like see the shit that they couldn't see on when they were filming.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go. I watched a Hulu original movie that I know I recommended to you, or at least thought you might want to check out. No Exit, which just came out.
Yeah, the wife voted that one down, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll watch it, but
kind of interesting. Again, with the one of the great things I will say about 2022, and I don't think this was necessarily a COVID thing that changed this, but we're getting at least interesting movies being released pretty much once or twice a month across one of the streaming services. So if you're one of those people that like getting out to the theater is difficult because you either have kids or just finding time in your schedule, you're like, fuck, man, like I want to watch good new movies, but I don't really know how to do it. I think we're getting at least one every month on one of the streaming service. That is worth a poke. And No Exit was one that just when I heard the premise of it, I was like, okay, that's one I'll probably check out the weekend that it is released. And so it's a Hulu original. And the concept is a girl is going to see her mom in the hospital. She's kind of estranged from her family. And on her way there, she gets caught in this blizzard, I believe somewhere in Colorado. And she has to pull over and stay at a rest stop that has been basically set up for like passerbys to just sort of wait out the storm. And when she arrives at that rest stop, she meets 4 other people. 2 of them are a couple, 2 of them are strangers who don't know each other. And she realizes that one of the cars in the parking lot, who she doesn't know who it belongs to, has a kidnapped girl in it, about a 5-year-old girl. And the movie kind of takes off from there, her trying to figure out who kidnapped this girl, who she can trust in the rest stop. Are any of these people who they say they are? Things like that. And it kind of takes off from there. The only name you might recognize in the movie, there's some actually decent performances, but Dennis Haysbert is in it, and he is the guy most notably who is the guy from the Allstate commercials.
Yeah. So you had me. You texted me the description of this movie, and I was extremely intrigued.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in basically the way you sold it. And then to get my wife to watch it, like, it was like she was tired from work. I was like, hey, let's watch a movie. And I played the trailer for her, and for some reason, I wasn't a big fan of it. Yeah, and one, I wish I hadn't watched the trailer because your description was intriguing enough. I didn't need that. And 2, she goes, nah. It's like I didn't tell her you were going to watch it too. I was just seeing how she felt about it. She's like, no. I was like, damn, okay. But 2, I was laughing when I was watching that trailer. I was like, I'd be like, hey, who owns the white van? You have a flat tire.
Yeah.
Oh, that's mine.
You've abducted a 5-year-old, you sick fuck.
Like I was just laughing. I was like, why doesn't she just be like, hey, it was I get it because she's stuck with these people and you don't want to be in danger, but it was just cracking me up. I'd be like,
the whole time I was kind of thinking, I was like, just walk in and blow up whoever's spot that is. Like,
yeah, like, hey, this person kidnapped a child. We're 4-on-1.
Yeah, they're the one who should be embarrassed, not you.
Yeah. So again, that's not knowing anything about it, but I'm in. I'll probably just watch that this weekend.
Yeah, it's an hour and a half. It's 95 minutes, and I won't obviously spoil the ending or anything, but it is interesting. I mean, I think it it sort of shows all of its cards a little too early to where like the last 20 minutes you're kind of like, okay, well I've seen all the cool shit. Like what happens now? And it sort of struggles to like hit that 95-minute runtime, but it was interesting, and the performances are better than you think. It's one that I'm glad I didn't spend money on in theaters, but I definitely don't think Hulu should be ashamed that they released this movie.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's what you're getting for what you sign up for. I've watched plenty of these type of movies that they're short runtime, and you're getting what you pay for. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like you don't. Again, we've said this 1,000 times. You don't need to be an Oscar worthy movie. Like entertain me for an hour and a half, and you did your job.
100%, and that's exactly what this did. So no exit. If you're a horror fan, I think you'd get something out of it. It's not going to blow you away, but definitely a little. It's worth a poke, as I say.
Ooh, a little pokey poke.
What else you got?
I'm sick, and I love. I mean, this is not why I'm sick, but I love all the Lord of the Rings movies. I mean, they're some of the most greatest movies of all time, but I can only watch them as the director's cut, and I made it through. I do this rewatch pretty often, again because it is insane, but I just watched all three of them, and the
Holy
first
shit.
one is like when I joke that I don't have time for things and I find time to like get the director's cuts of Lord of the Rings. The fourth one is 4.5 hours almost. So
Oh my
like,
god.
but so I usually try to do this every so often.
So are you watching these like in the background, kind of while you work? Or are you like,
Yeah, they're in the background. I'm not like.
but you've seen them before, so it's
Oh
not
yeah,
like,
I've seen them 1,000 times. So like I don't like close my computer and put my phone down and just like make popcorn. They're running in the background. But my point is, and I know there's people who do feel like me, and I know it's not for everybody, but for three movies that have a runtime of like between 3 hours and 40 minutes and 4.5 hours,
mm-hmm.
they are. I will defend these movies to the death. Like they're incredible works of art. They're made with such passion by Peter Jackson. Like they're the way they were filmed, all together at once, the flow through the movies. I can go off on Lord of the Rings and why it's so iconic, but it's crazy to me that I can watch those movies and not once get sick of it or get bored of it with its incredible runtime. So I'm glad I did it again. I'll probably do it again soon. I know I'm not alone in that, but yeah, I know for some people saying, yeah, I like watching a 4.5 hour long movie. It's a lot for people, but damn, do I love the Lord of the Rings movies.
So I actually don't know if I know this about you. Were you a big fan of the books too?
No, I've read the books. And this might be controversial because I'll have plenty to say later in my top 100 about these movies because they are relatively very high up. But I actually find the Lord of the Rings movies way better than the book, and I know that's going to be sacrilegious to a lot of people.
I don't know. I think that's pretty defensible.
It's the thing is, and I understand, like most books are always better than the movies. Harry Potter, absolutely better than the movies. Like, I mean, you can go down the line of movies that just do not live up to the book. It's because the book has more opportunity to get into the characters, like get in their heads. Like you can't
Mm-hmm.
inner monologue in a movie. I mean, so you can maybe with one character, but you can't do that with everyone. Tolkien, as a genius of a writer as he was, my God, could drone out on like the color
Yeah.
of a leaf, and like it would take pages. Or again, I'm not saying he's not a genius, he is, but as someone who appreciates it for what it is and appreciates the films for what they are, the Lord of the Rings movies are they're just iconic, and it would be really hard for me to reread Lord of the Rings once a year. I'll reread Harry Potter no problem once a year, but and that's what you could be listening and being like, yeah, that's because Harry Potter is dumb or easy. Yes, it is. Harry Potter is easy to read. It's also a fun read. That's the point. But the movies, the Lord of the Rings movies, have so much depth to it that again, 4.5 hours, sign me up. I could watch it probably movie like 3 times in a row, like no problem.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't grow up like reading the books that much, and I'm kind of like a cursory fan of the movies, but it's not because of lack of interest. Like I do think they're entertaining movies, and I should probably go back and rewatch them too.
Yeah. Now the Hobbit movies, you won't see me defending.
Yeah, those are a little tougher. The fact that they stretched one book, that
God.
it wasn't that long anyway into three
Yeah.
movies, and you feel it almost right away, like when they get to Bilbo's house and they're just like singing songs about
For
potatoes
like
for 40
25
minutes.
minutes.
My God, guys, really?
Yeah. So I've rewatched Lord of the Rings, and again, I will. Those are some of my favorite movies of all time. So it's always good to revisit.
Nice. All right, I only have two things left, and one of them is short. I watched. Speaking of like, we're getting good releases on these streaming services. All I need is like one good thing a month to justify me spending my money with you, and we'll be straight. And HBO Max came through with the original movie Kimi, Kimi. This is directed by Steven Soderbergh, of course, who did all the Ocean's movies. And it stars Zoe Kravitz, our new Catwoman. And the premise to this one, which I thought you would find interesting, Cycly, the plot synopsis is a tech worker with agoraphobia, which
Ooh.
of course is even worse post-COVID, which they acknowledge in this movie, discovers recorded evidence of a violent crime, but is met with resistance when she tries to report it. So Kimi, Zoe Kravitz's character Angela Childs, is basically a like tech support for a service that's basically Alexa called Kimi in the movie. And her job is to like monitor requests people have made through the like smart home device and like correct the service. So like if you say like Kimi set a timer for I don't know 3 minutes and she accidentally plays like an Enrique Iglesias song, she'll like correct that error. And on one of the recordings that she has, she is fairly certain that she hears a home invasion and a murder of a woman.
Wow.
And so it kind of just goes from there. And it's pretty interesting, I think. It moves
Sign me up. I like that.
Yeah, it moves really fast. Like again with all these movies, like this one's an hour 29. And my one complaint about it's good. There's a few weird visual choices Soderbergh makes, like some weird like there's some camera angles where it looks like Kimmy is being followed by like a TMZ reporter, like backing up as she's like leaving a office building or something. But my main thing is Soderbergh, I don't think was that interested in this story. Like the way that it comes across, there's like all these really cool ideas that he like kind of introduces and then never really pulls the thread any further. So it's like I don't know, like what was his inspiration in making this film? Because at the end of the day, it's kind of more like it ends up being like your run of the mill thriller. And he introduced all these really kind of interesting concepts about like voyeurism and privacy and like the world post COVID, even with the agoraphobia and like seclusion and like how do we become a part of society even though we're so detached. But at the end of the day, he's just like, I kind of just want to do like a 90-minute thriller movie.
And I wonder too, like, is this part of it? I mean, again, I don't know. I have know nothing about the contracts for this movie, but is it someone like a director like him? And you've heard a lot of directors. Does he find out this is going to be on Hulu and immediately that takes off his, passion? Because like when we you see movies, there's a lot of directors who are like advocating like, no, these movies are meant to be seen in the big screen. And I mean, I feel that way about a lot of films. Like, if Batman came out on HBO and came out in the theater, I'd be like, no, I have to see that in a theater. Like it's such a enhancement of the viewing experience. So I don't know if that's the order of things, but I could see someone like Soderbergh be like, oh, this is a fucking Hulu movie. Like I just immediately takes him out of it.
Yeah, that's a great theory, actually. Maybe. Because what was that movie? He did another HBO Max movie. Let me look it up real quick.
Because like immediately you're like, well, this isn't gonna turn heads. I'm getting paid the same, like, right? He's not getting percentage of box office. He's getting paid an X amount for the work.
Yeah.
So,
No, No Sudden Move was the one that he did in 2021, which I believe was supposed to be a theatrical release. It had an incredible cast, and it got moved to HBO Max. So I wonder if this was part of like a first look deal that he had with Warner Brothers, and then when they said this is just going to go straight to streaming, he was like, "All right, well, fuck off."
I could see it. I mean, a lot of directors are very passionate about that, right? Like, I mean, because again, the story you just sold, I knew you texted me about it, but like the story, like hearing you say that, I'm like, that movie sounds up our alley. Like
Yeah.
that's a great concept. I mean, it made me think of that scene in Us where she's getting murdered and she says, Alexa, call the police, and then like
Mhm.
immediately like fuck the police starts
Yeah.
playing.
Or
Like
the Sting song, "Every breath
yeah,
you take."
like it's a good concept because it's a modern potential problem.
Yeah.
So I think the story is there. So that's interesting that you say that. Like, so they could have said, "Hey, we're going to cut the shit out of this because we're going to put it on Hulu. It has to have this runtime." Immediately takes a director out of his art.
Yeah, maybe that was it. I'd be interested for you to watch it now to see if you kind of get the same thing, because
Yeah, I will.
there's like so much there for him to go after, and he just doesn't seem really interested in it. It almost just seems like, and I'm not saying he mailed it in, but it doesn't seem like he's interested in this film being any more than like a surface level thriller, which for Soderbergh, I feel like he would have a little more ambition with a project like this.
Right.
But
Yeah,
maybe
that's why you have to wonder if something else was up.
yeah. But it's a serviceable movie, and I think you'd enjoy it as well. I would probably say slightly better than No Exit, if I had to
Yeah,
recommend.
I think that's the order I'll watch them in.
Yeah. All right, I only have one other thing, and I won't talk about it long. What do you have?
Yeah, I'll just finish with really quick two shows I've been watching and you've been watching: Pam and Tommy and How I Met Your Father. Pam and Tommy, again, if you've heard us the last couple episodes talk about it, it was exactly what I said, I think, in the very first episode discussion, like a month ago. It's well written, it's well produced, it's well acted. It's just running out of steam. I mean, there's still 2 episodes left, 2 or 3.
Yeah, as we're
Uh,
recording this, it
it's
probably
probably out, yeah.
just ended, but we're, I believe, with 2 episodes left.
Yeah. So again, when this is out, so hopefully we'll all be singing a different tune in a couple weeks. But it's the same issue I said. We know where the story ends. It doesn't end in a crescendo. It doesn't end with a big climax. Like, so unless they're going to change something, we're feeling it fast. Like, it's a good story. It's sympathetic to Pam's life and you know what they actually went through when we're all like discovering the internet and privacy and isn't a thing. uh it's weird to say that the show is well done, but I'm just kind of losing interest. So I mean, we'll finish it just cause we're almost there, but very much meh, not excited about the next episode. And kind of, oh sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I've enjoyed it, but I'm with you. I'm kind of like riding it out at this point. Like it's peaked to
Yeah,
me.
absolutely. Like, we haven't even gotten Seth Rogen in the last 2 episodes.
Yeah, and I think that's another weird thing about it is it's like the meat and potatoes of the story like is I think, and one thing that was interesting to me was like the everyone's perspective coming into this. Maybe heist is too big of a word, but like the theft of this tape, right? Like
Yeah.
seeing all the different players' perspective, and then it's been a weird shift. And I know shows oftentimes have a bunch of different directors, but it's become like a completely centric on something completely. I don't want to spoil it
Yeah,
for anybody not watching it, but like it's basically a procedural now, and before it was like a totally different
yeah,
show with more
absolutely.
comedic elements.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I mean, it's supposed to be a very true story and following, and from what I've read, again, it is very, you know, very honest. But that's the problem. We know where the real story goes. So
Yeah, and the performances are interesting, the characters are interesting, but I'm really just finishing it now because I'm pot committed
yes,
to it. Like we sat through 6 episodes, so I'm gonna
like if
ride
they
out.
were like, we're gonna have a second season, just like Tiger King or something, I'd be like, no, I'm good. Like, I don't need any more of this.
It's actually a point of pride in my life that I never watched season 2 of Tiger King.
No, no, and no, that's a whole different discussion we can get to. They hit gold when it came out because of the pandemic. No one needed Tiger King or the Hulu show. Like,
Oh
I'm not
God,
trying to
yeah.
change the subject, but like really quick, like no one asked for that. No one needs that. It's
Right.
a society. We're past Joe Exotic.
100%.
So that's what I'll say on that. So the second show, really quick, How I Met Your father. We said it, big How I Met Your Mother fans have been sticking with the show because it's 22 minutes out of my week. Like I said, I can watch Lord of the Rings. I have enough time to watch that. But it's
A great
we have
double
two.
bill, an episode of How I Met Your Father and Lord of the Rings.
Yes, absolutely. Who doesn't compare the two? Um, it has shown some growth. The characters are slightly, the actors are starting to get to know their characters. Some of it's just bad.
Yeah.
Like it's just, I defended last week's episode, last week on our pod, And then my wife hadn't watched it, so I went back and watched it with her. And I texted you. I was like, yeah, I don't know why I defended this
Yeah.
episode. Like,
So as this is playing, episode 8 came out last night, and it's a 10 episode first season. So
yes,
episode
and
7
it has gotten renewed.
Yeah.
It's gotten renewed for 20 episodes for season 2. And unlike what I just said about like Pam and Tommy, or maybe even BelAir, I'll probably keep giving this a chance because it is such a little commitment. Like it's not.
I agree.
BelAir is like almost hour-long episodes. Again, I'm only 2 episodes in, and it could just make me love it. But I don't know. Maybe until we get like a cameo from How I Met Your Mother, or there's gonna be a definitive moment where I'm either in for sure or out.
Yeah.
Because right now I'm just doing it out of just respect, I think.
Yeah, I agree with all that. And I'll say this. I think 2 things about this show. Number 1, I'm going to give it for sure to the end of the season because it is such a low commitment. But I'm still cautiously holding out hope for the season finale. Because if there was one thing, and I know Carter Bays and Craig Thomas are sort of like peripherally involved, the creators of How I Met Your Mother, not as much as I would like them to be. But one thing that they always did very well on How I Met Your Mother, and I think you'll agree with this, is season finales were always appointment television.
Mm-hmm.
Like, make sure you see the season finale because something cool is going to happen. But, Cycle, I think my issue with this show is, and I'm tuning in each week because it's, tertiary to How I Met Your Mother. I don't find the characters that interesting. I'm definitely not laughing. And I just have not seen even like flashes of greatness and potential that I saw early on in How I Met Your Mother, even before it really found its footing.
I think the most I've laughed is one like, ha, right? Like
Yeah.
not like a sustained laughter, like, okay, right? Like, and the thing is, like, I like Hilary Duff. I think she's probably one of the best. I'm not comedic wise, but I think she's a good like she's selling the show.
Yeah,
She's
she's a good
carrying it. Like the British guy, I don't know his name. He's probably the most comedic character.
There's just not a lot of comedic talent in this cast.
It is, and again, it feels so. It just feels like they just are still like almost pigeonholed. Like they just are like they're so rigid. It just feels.
Yeah, they don't feel comfortable in the
Yeah, it doesn't. It just feels exactly that way. Like they're almost like just reading lines on a script, and I know that's what they're doing, but they need to sell the show, and I don't know. We'll see how long we keep going, but
yeah, it's getting to the point where it's like for me to justify why I'm watching it outside of like it being related to How I Met Your Mother, I'm really, really starting to struggle as to why I'm tuning in. But it's a very low rent commitment. But at a certain point, like it is 22 minutes, so like, or basically 30 minutes with commercials on Hulu. So it's going to have to earn its place in my rotation. Because by the time I get home from work and I sit down with my food, we have like 3-4 hours. So if you want a chunk of that, How I Met Your Father, you better start to fucking figure your shit out.
If it's Lord of the Rings or How I Met Your Father, I'll probably pick the 4.5 hours of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And 22 minutes on. But can I just show you really quickly the commercials on Hulu, because I usually don't watch Hulu that much, like sitcoms. That might be hurting my viewing experience. It is crazy. The last episode, there were like 5 commercial breaks at least, and they were all 3 minutes. I'm so glad you mentioned like Brooklyn Nine-Nine's on Peacock and Hulu. I switched over to Brooklyn Nine-Nine on Peacock. The commercials are 30 seconds.
Yep.
30 seconds to 45. On Hulu, again, 3 minutes at a time. And I'm like, I can't. It's driving me crazy. So there could be an asterisk why it's frustrating to watch How I Met Your Father. It could be
and
constant interruption.
The one thing with Hulu too, at least on my TV, maybe you're experiencing this, when they go to commercial, they fucking crank up the volume. Like,
oh wow.
Like no matter what you have the show on, it goes up 10. Like whoever sound mixes them. And it's really fucking annoying.
Yeah.
All right, for me, I'll close with, we're speaking of how, shows have to earn their spot in our schedule. And what better way to spend 22 minutes cycling than me to continue watching season 1 of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, which I've given us episode recaps for all of these so far, and I will continue to do so until the end of the Green Ranger.
Because we have to watch those together. When you came and visited a few weeks ago, I really wish we had been able to watch those.
I think we will have to do a commentary on just the Green with MB 4-episode arc with Tommy, but that's about 20 episodes from where I'm at, because I last watched, and Netflix, there's some serious controversy here because I use the TV Time app to keep up with all the different shows I'm watching. And Netflix and the TV Time app have a discrepancy abound among what episode number this is. But we'll go off Netflix for the time being. I watched season 1, episode 6 of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers called Food Fight.
Oh, I know this one. Oh, the pig.
Yep. Yeah, let me read you that. That's crazy you remember.
Oh, I remember this one.
Plot synopsis is Ernie, of course, runs the Angel Grove Gym and Juice Bar. Ernie's Juice Bar sponsors an international food festival in cooperation with Angel Grove High. The 5 Ranger teens are among those involved. Rita sends down Finster's latest creation, the aptly named Pudgy Pig, to consume the festival's food supply. So, first off, this episode starts with Rita, even by her standards, is in a pretty bad mood in this episode. She gets a stomach ache pretty early on. And she sends down the pig, who is basically like a pig head with legs, but then it has a Spartan helmet on.
Yeah, I remember that.
And with every episode, all that I'm doing is giving you the enemy that they fight and then my favorite quote from the episode. My favorite quote, this is Zordon. I can't remember the name of the pig, but again, his thing is he just wants to consume all the food in Angel Grove and essentially the world. And he goes to the food festival and he pigs out, and then he goes to like a dumpster and he's eating food. And Zordon really just sort of to size up this threat. He tells the Rangers, and I quote, "At this rate, I calculate he will consume all of Earth's food in 48 hours." It's like, holy shit. All of Earth's food?
Jesus. Even my Ritz crackers in my pantry?
Yeah, he's coming for those, bro.
It's not even about that. It's like his how is he making it across house? Is he Santa? Like, how is he getting in everyone's pantry so fast?
That's a great question. The logistics of it. I was sitting on my couch, and when Zordon gave us that estimate, I just go, damn.
Fuck, Zordon, man. All right.
Fucking work. And of course, the Trini comes up with it's actually a genius idea. They noticed that at the International Food Festival, the pig avoided all of the spicy foods.
Of course.
So when they encounter him in, I believe it's the Angel Grove like junkyard, they feed him a bunch of foods purposely, very similar to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze, that are laced with hot radishes. So
come on, you can't fall for that, pig.
Yeah, stupid bitch.
Poor Bulk, man. Like, imagine if that food, like, he'd be suffering.
Bulk, he gets a lot.
Skull, which one's? Yeah, Bulk.
Bulk is the big one. Yeah, Skull is the skinnier one. Bulk has been getting a lot of screen time in like the first 4 or 5 minutes of these episodes.
Every episode, yeah. I can hear the theme song for them every time.
So bad, dude. It's so bad. One thing, I don't know if you remember this, but I was like really confused. The term, and I have the subtitles on, so I even know how it's spelled, but the term dolts, D-O-L-T-S, is used by both Rita, Bulk and Skull, and I think even the Rangers at one point, and it's used to refer to someone who's like kind of screwing up.
Yeah, like, I mean, that was a big 90s.
I've never heard that word.
I remember dolt. I mean, that's because everyone called it to you behind your back. Sorry.
Oh. Wait, what?
Huh? Sorry. No, I kind of like, I don't think it was... I just remember like knowing what dolt meant, but I don't think it was really used that much.
No, yeah, I mean, weird to hear Google, today. Dolt is a noun, a stupid person.
You fucking dolt.
So, all right, that was news to me.
We're bringing it back. We're officially here on the pod. Dolt is back.
God, one of those weird things from I had no recollection of it, and they were just tossing it around like it was just common vernacular.
Maybe it was like a late 80s, early 90s.
When Rita said it, though, I was like, okay, wait, what the fuck?
Who did she call it? Goldar?
I think Finster. Dude, she's a dick to Finster in this episode.
Oh, yeah.
And he even admits, he's like, this is not my best monster. And she's like, just fucking use it.
Yeah,
and then when it gets beat, she's like, what is wrong with you? He's like, bitch, I told you.
Yeah, like you rushed the job.
He did tell her, he's like, it's not ready. She's just like, I want something that eats a lot of food. Finster, dude, like, that guy's overworked and underpaid. He needs.
That's what I would say. What is his salary? Like, what are his benefits?
He's gonna just work himself to death there.
Yeah, no appreciation.
All right, my protein shake's empty. You got anything else?
Nah, I'm good.
Okay.
I can't wait to join you on the Green Ranger miniseries.
Yeah. So I think if we do a commentary on it, we'll just tell people like start on this episode and we're just going to play through
Yeah.
all of them.
I mean, it's 5 episodes of like 20 minutes. It will be over fast.
Dude, they're like, if you don't count credits, they're like legit, I think 18 minutes long. It's insane.
Yeah.
Meaning when we were kids and we would watch them, they would just pump them full of like fucking kids cereal commercials and shit, right?
Yeah, and toys. And I would yell at my mom that I needed it now.
Yeah.
But Mom,
the meatloaf. Fuck. All right, moving on to the last part of our show. Brian's not here to do the intro bird noise we usually do, but there we go.
No, I'm sorry.
It's our Do You Even Lift Bruh segment, the question and answer piece of the Bro 4 Squad podcast that we always leave you with. And we are continuing a segment we started on our 5-year anniversary in episode 160, where all 5 of the bros are counting down our personal top 100 movie lists of all time. And you can find these lists on our website at the top, linked there with each of our lists as we count down episode by episode and reveal them. And Cycly, before we dive into these today, we're each going to count down 2 more on our lists. How would you describe these top 100 movies lists to people? Because as I always say, this is not like your top 100 pieces of film of all time. It's a much different type of countdown.
Yeah, you're going to hear things on our list that you will be like, what is that doing on your list? That makes no sense. That's a terrible movie. And some of these might be terrible movies, but to us, there's something special. And that's the point. These are your top 100 movies. And it could be because of artistic. It could be because they're Oscar winners. And it could be because you were drunk when you watched it and you found it fucking hilarious. Or when you were 5 years old, it meant a lot to you. So it is your own. And I've said this every week. You should do this list yourself. It's a really fun activity. Get your friends to do it. I got my sisters to do it. It's just really fun to compare and talk about.
Yeah, my mom did it. It was a fun exercise for her. And just looking at these lists, we have everything from Rear Window from 1954 to Ghosts of Girlfriends Past, starring Matthew McConaughey. So as long as you can justify why you like the film, it has a place on your own personal list.
Even if you don't justify it, it's fucking your list.
Yeah.
And anyone who tells you that you're full of shit, like if we're allowing Brian to continue to be on the pod after having Jumanji, not the Jumanji.
Yeah, the first one with The Rock.
I've mentioned that. Yeah, then you're fine.
All right, Cycly, the last one you counted down was your number 76 movie of all time, which was the Ari Aster directed Hereditary. So what is your 75th favorite movie of all time? Wow, top 75.
I know.
Today.
So this, so yeah, it's Revenge of the Sith.
Nice.
It is. You're not going to see Attack of the Clones on this list by any means. You're not going to see any of the sequel trilogies on this list, at least for me.
I don't think anybody will have.
I hope not.
Episodic.
That might be a line that will go across, because I also do find Attack of the Clones is terrible, and Phantom Menace we only defend because I think we were at the right age, so it holds a special place in our heart. Revenge of the Sith, I think the strongest part about it is it's the story we've been waiting for, right? Like it's the whole reason we got the prequels. It's everything we wanted to see when we first met Darth Vader in the originals. Now, does George Lucas knock it out of the park? No. I mean, we can talk about the struggles of the prequels for days, but we always have defended them on the podcast because of where we were. And it is no question, I think, I would be really surprised if someone disagreed with this, that Revenge of the Sith is the strongest of the prequels. Again, could it have been better? Absolutely. But we get what we wanted to see. And I think obviously getting the transition of Palpatine and seeing, Anakin change to Vader, the epic battle between Obi-Wan and Anakin on Mustafar, and then at the end we're seeing him in his Vader outfit. Those are all so epic, and it now a lot of the movie has become a meme, and you and I are
that's only strengthened it for me.
Guilty parties of Anakin, you're breaking my heart. And you chose like
are there, like
the high ground. Like there's so much of this movie that like you can laugh at and make fun of, but like you said, it's endeared it to me.
100%.
Again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you this is the best Star Wars movies. There's plenty of Star Wars movies above this on my list. But I think the movie, it's only on this list because it is, I think, built up to be what we were so excited about. I remember when they announced the prequels, I was like, I just can't wait to see Anakin transition to Vader. And was it the best acted? Was it the best written? No, but we still got to see it. And I will always like this movie. Like, I think I love the prequels, and I think this movie is a solid. To put it at 75, I think that shows nothing but respect. Maybe a little high to a lot of people, but the movie's fantastic. It just needed, maybe a little better screenwriting or someone saying no to George Lucas.
I'll say this about Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. It definitely has its flaws, but I don't think there's a single time that you or anyone else could ask me, hey, do you want to watch this movie? And I would say no.
Yeah.
And I also think that Ian McDiarmid as Palpatine in this movie is, I'm not going to say a top 20 best performance I've ever seen at all, because that'd be a tough list to put together, but it is a top 20 fun to watch performance.
Absolutely.
Like, just the way that he is chewing on the scenery as a prolific stage actor who up until this point I don't really think had gotten to my knowledge before Revenge of the Sith hadn't really gotten a chance in a feature film to like really take over a movie, because he's really kind of a bit character before that in the Star Wars films. I mean, something about his vocal cadence and his presence where I'm just like, can everyone shut the fuck up? Ian McDiarmid is talking.
The scene where about Darth Plagueis and it's just
that is
I mean, again, we can make fun of like the Natalie Portman scenes or things like that, and yeah, the movie has its flaws, like you said, but the movie still takes us where we wanted to go, and that's the biggest compliment I can give.
How many times have I been drunk and yelled, "Your new empire"?
Oh God, the amount of times you and I have said that. My allegiance belongs to the Republic, to democracy.
So talking about that. What do you?
And we make fun of it and love it at the same time, and that's the point of the list.
You know,
like, I know it's ridiculous.
I used to think I was making fun of it, but I don't think I am. I think I just love it.
We don't know. It's been too long.
It's like the Sarcastaball episode of South Park.
Yeah, like I don't know if I'm being sarcastic anymore.
I don't know, Sharon. I can't stop anymore. All right. My number 75 movie is a movie that I led off with a quote from the top, and that is Happy Gilmore, the Adam Sandler comedy.
Man, we're getting some Adam Sandler movies, surprisingly.
Adam Sandler
I have one on here.
Has like only a few movies that I really find him like hilarious in, and this is like the creme de la creme. So many great fucking quotes in it, and we've never really gotten a movie like this where they like take professional golf. Like we've gotten like Caddyshack and some other like private golf club movies, but where they take professional golf and turn it into like a hilarious, basically like fertile ground for humor. And this is what Adam Sandler is built for. Basically, he plays a hockey player who becomes a pro golfer, who like the quintessential Adam Sandler character, who's like a loudmouth and is incompetent, but at the end of the day, he really does have a big heart, even though he might beat the shit out of someone who like talks to him wrong. And I just think the big difference I think in Adam Sandler's like misses and his hits like this is the supporting cast don't try to be so outlandish and memorable in their roles. They're just like perfectly fit for the film. So like in this, we have Christopher McDonald as Shooter McGavin, just incredible. Carl Weathers as Chubbs, phenomenal. And then Julie Bowen, of course, as Virginia Venet. Those guys are all great, and they don't try to be so like fucking over the top and Rob Schneider-ish, where it's like, dude, just stop, like chill. They just add to the film.
Yeah, and I think you hit it nail on the head with like Adam Sandler's formula. And there's what's successful and there's what's not. And like we've now had a few different, Adam Sandler movies on our lists, not like, but between all of us. And the ones that have made it are exactly that. They have characters who aren't just gimmicky. They're actual side characters with story and depth and like, take it seriously. So I think that's funny that we can, Adam Sandler, it's very quick to know if an Adam Sandler movie is going to be bad or good. And for some reason, he abandoned that formula for a long time in the 2000s and since, honestly.
Yeah, this was that sweet spot though, his prime.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what is your, I guess the last one we'll do today, your number 74 movie of all time, just ahead of Star Wars Episode 3?
Yeah, my 74 is a comedy. It is, I think it's 1999. Yeah, 1999's Office Space.
Great one.
And yeah, so the movie, if you've never seen it, it's a hilarious workplace comedy. Like,
it might even be funnier now than it was then, like just based on the.
Exactly, this movie is timeless, completely, and especially like if you love The Office. This came out before The Office. You should watch this movie. So like the opening scene is iconic. The whole story, if you've never seen it, the whole story is about just like a guy who's having to go to his like mindless fucking 9-to-5 job every day, and he hates it. It doesn't mean anything in his life. He's just kind of become a zombie. Like the movie opens in a scene where he's stuck in traffic and there's an old woman like on a walker who's like passing him, and he's already miserable at job, and he's listening to gangster rap, and he's just seeing this old woman pass him by. But the film is funny. It's like, it has Jennifer Aniston, still relatively early in her career. And I don't know. I think the movie, it's funny because when you think of like famous comedies, I've never met someone who doesn't like this movie. I think everyone I've ever met thinks it's hilarious and really, can't help but rave about it. But it's never like it's underrated in the sense that you just don't hear people talk about it that often. Like Michael, the character Michael Bolton scene, like everyone's like, oh, the famous musician. He's like,
fucking sick of hearing.
He fucking hates him. He's like, he tries to go my mic, or like they're like, he's like, why should I have to change my name? He's the one who sucks. Like, or what do you say you do here? There's so many iconic quotes or stapler.
People.
Yeah, like the Nazis had flares and they made the Jews wear. Like when the guys were getting like a TJ.
She's like, I thought the minimum amount of flare was 10. It is.
But is that who you want to be?
Is that who you want to be?
If you've never seen this,
you want from me?
I feel like because it is a timeless story, and it is so. Who hasn't felt this way about their work life? And obviously with the pandemic, like a lot of people started working from home, and that probably saved a lot of people feeling like this. But it's a very universal feeling. And there's probably a lot of people who haven't seen this movie who are listening because for some reason it's just not that talked about. But this movie holds up, and I think will always be one of the top comedies of all time. So I know like Comedy Central plays it every so often. And it's Mike Judge, if you like King of the Hill and a couple other things, like if you like his sense of humor.
Did he do Idiocracy?
I think he did.
Yeah.
I could be wrong about that, but I feel like he did do that.
Looks like it's on Amazon Prime right now, too.
Office Spaces?
Mm-hmm.
Shit, I might have to go watch it. Yeah, fantastic film, and one of my favorite comedies. You will laugh the whole time.
And Gary Cole, who I think is just an incredible character actor in general, as Lumbergh is phenomenal.
God, Lumbergh. Like the sex scene where he's like, yeah, about that.
Peter,
TPS.
what's happening?
What?
Also,
again, if you've never worked in an office, it's so real. The movie hits too deep. It's terrible.
Lumbergh, I'm going to have to ask you to come back later. He's got like Cheetos on his desk.
Oh, God.
And have we ever not had that conversation with your wife or girlfriend where Peter's in the car and he's trying to explain their scheme to Joanna? And he's like, so basically there's like these fractions of a cent that the company doesn't do anything with.
She's like,
that we're putting in a bank account. Sounds
so you're stealing.
No. Maybe I'm not explaining this to you properly.
She's like, and she's trying. She's like, oh, okay, yeah.
But we've always been there like, okay, maybe you're not getting this.
O-face guy. God, okay, now see, that's what I love about talking about this list. Like, even just saying the movie makes you replay scenes in your head.
And when we talked about Milton, played by Steve.
God, yeah, fucking stapler, man. He just wants a stapler back. He's gonna burn the whole place.
They were in love.
This movie deserves more attention. Like, I honestly, it's crazy to me.
Ken Naga. Well, not gonna work here anymore.
Nope. He gets promoted because he stops caring.
Oh my God. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go rewatch that here in the next couple of
years.
That's the point of these lists, like you said. Like, remember. My number 74, last one we'll do tonight, is I'm actually surprised it was low because when I like think about this movie, man, it's just so fucking interesting and well made to me, and just a perfect point in all these actors' careers, like just before they really exploded, and that's David Fincher's 2010 film, The Social Network, of course, about the founding of Facebook. And I know there's been a lot of debate back and forth about like how accurate this really is, with regards to like, because it does, I guess ultimately it shows Zuckerberg as like a total piece of shit. Like he pretty much stole the idea from.
I feel like it's still pretty true.
Yeah, I mean it could be for sure from the Winklevoss twins, but
I mean just him being a piece of shit, not it, like just in general.
But just the way this whole thing plays out, and the characters are so interesting to me. Andrew Garfield, first time I ever saw him in anything as Eduardo Saverin. The only thing I like Justin Timberlake in, because I think, again, appreciate him as an artist, a musical artist, but I just think I see him as Sean Parker. Like, just some incredible quotes that he has where he's like, $1 million isn't cool. You know what's cool? $1 billion. The line that Mark Zuckerberg has where he tells the Winklevoss twins at the deposition, if you were the inventors of Facebook, you would have invented Facebook. And I think one of the best lines too, and Cycle, this probably resonates with you, just obviously being a lawyer. When they ask Eduardo Saverin, they're like, why didn't you have your own lawyers look over the contract? And he goes, I thought they were my lawyers.
Yeah. It's like your own, it's like if you're listening to this and you have an HR, your HR is not there for you guys. Like your HR is there to protect the business.
Yeah.
They make it seem like they're your friends. They're not.
I think the framing, and Fincher always usually finds some cool way to incorporate something like this, but the framing device of this, I thought was really interesting, and it's sort of Aaron Sorkin wrote the screenplay, which obviously he's just an incredible writer. How the framing device is essentially the deposition with like they're too long, I guess, to be called flashbacks, but they almost use the deposition as like chapter intervals, to sort of like progress the timeline of like where they were moving along in their life. And I don't know, to me, this is just like a film where if I'm flipping channels and it's on, I can't look away. Like I have to pretty much finish the thing out.
I don't think this movie did like had the right to be as good as it did. Right? Like when I first like heard they were making this film about Zuckerberg and Facebook and everything, like, okay, like whatever, another biopic or like, and I remember seeing it. Obviously, you have Sorkin on it, and that's immediately going to turn it up a notch because of his ability, like you said. But I remember watching it being like, what? This was like an actually well-made, good movie about the founding of Facebook. So yeah, you're right. If you haven't seen it, it's more than what you would think than just the surface level. Oh, how Facebook got started.
Yeah, and I didn't even know the story was that interesting or interesting at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then the way it's told, just because again, it changed these people's lives forever, and really our lives forever.
Yeah, I mean, and you could argue for the worse. And the way it started, that Zuckerberg was doing this to judge women, like things like that. Like just, yeah, it's crazy how that has impacted society.
And it really is tragic, the Saverin Zuckerberg, like the very end scene where not the very last scene is where Zuckerberg looks up Rooney Mara's character on Facebook, which is kind of sad in and of itself. But the scene where Saverin and Zuckerberg are basically like alone in the conference room, and he just says like, I was your only friend. Like, yeah. Why'd you do this? Like, you're rich, but you're going to be miserable for the rest of your life. And I don't know, you look at Mark Zuckerberg, and I know he's a robot and doesn't actually have emotion, but maybe he is.
And that's the thing. Like, I think he has turned more robotic since, because he doesn't know how to be, be friendly, because he's made so, like he's hurt the people who are close to him.
Yeah. And a line that we've quoted all the time, when Eduardo he realizes that he's basically been taken out of the Facebook hierarchy, and he's lost pretty much all of his money because of dilution of shares. And he's walking up to Mark. He's like, Mark! And Sean Parker goes, he's wired in. And he goes, oh, yeah? And he picks up his laptop and just fucking smashes it on the ground.
It's a good scene, yeah. And you feel for him. Yeah.
Andrew Garfield, I saw, had an interview about, like, David Fincher notoriously is just, like, kind of insane on set. Like, he does, like, 50 takes of a scene. And Andrew Garfield was talking about that scene in particular, which he was like, I knew this was like a huge scene for the movie. And after like 20 takes, I remember getting really frustrated. Like, what isn't he getting that he wants? Like, he's not telling you. I just keep fucking doing this.
And that probably made the scene even better because he was actually frustrated.
Probably, yeah. He's like, okay, now I'm going to slam this. Like, how many laptops do we have to break? I don't.
Yeah. But it was very real because those were like, right, yeah, like he was actually angry.
He demanded every one of them be actual MacBooks.
High budget.
All right, that will do it for episode 178 of the Bro Force Squad podcast. Thank you guys so much for checking us out. One last thing before I let Cycly say his final thoughts. I believe this will be the last episode we have before the Broscars come out. So those are our annual award shows that we do basically to steal ratings away from the Academy Awards and the Oscars. So if you can go to our website at broforsquad.com, at the top you will see a link where you yourself can vote on the Broscars categories, because unlike the Academy Awards, we actually want the pulse of the people when it comes to giving out our hardware. So please go to broforsquad.com, and at the top I believe the link is in pink. You can click that and it's a Google form. You can vote for any of the categories. You don't have to vote for all of them, so please help us out there. Cycly, your closing thoughts, words of wisdom for the people.
Yeah, well, not really words of wisdom. Just want to give an update to something I talked with Passion about a couple weeks ago about the reboot of Futurama. If you haven't heard, Joe DiMaggio has officially signed back and will be reprising Bender in the reboot of not reboot, or just the 2023 reincarnation of Futurama. So as a fan and as someone who felt the show wouldn't be right, very excited to have Bender, who's one of the most iconic characters ever, back at it.
Yeah, that is good news. And so I guess let me ask this. Did you, because you actually didn't seem too concerned, even though I thought like this thing was over a few weeks ago when we talked. Is this surprising to you that he came back, or do you think all this was just either a power play on his part, or like both sides eventually like got cooler heads and they prevailed?
I think you had to cooler heads, because I think there's no show. I mean, I said this when we talked about it. Like, you can't have the show without Bender. Like, he is the soul of, like, he is the comedic soul of the show. The show has a lot of, great things going for it, but Bender is by far everyone's favorite. So I think at the end of the day, they knew it wasn't going to be successful. And if it was going to truly invest money in this, then you have to have the characters that the people demand.
Yeah, I can't. His voice is so unique too. Like, I can't even imagine what they would have done trying to replace him.
He's not to get into a whole different discussion, but really quick, because I know we're closing out. But he's a very famous, obviously, voice actor, and he's always talked for 20 years, that Bender's voice is not easy to do. He's like, that is the hardest voice that he does. So yeah, exactly. It's not something to replicate.
Yeah, it's very unique. Good news though. Do we have a release date yet for the show?
All I know is 2023, I believe. Yeah. And
do we know how many episodes the new season will be?
20, I think.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's just one that they've announced, right? They're just doing one more season?
Yeah, from what I know. I mean, I don't know if they're going to do, like, because it's been off the air for, 8 years, they're going to do they do 4 movies with, and make 5 episodes equal a movie or what. I don't know what the official plan is. But I'm sure, like, Matt Groening, like, he's been talked about, like, he still has stories to tell. Like, he said that for years for Futurama. So I'm hoping they already know what they're going to do, and they're not just, like, going to go fresh into the writing room.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully we don't get a spiral from the Book of Saw scenario where we're like, they must have an idea.
Right. I mean, yeah, I'm putting too much faith in this.
Guess they didn't. All right, for our legal counsel, Ronnie Cycly, I'm the Mayor, Jeff Hornacek, and we have been, and still are actually, the Bro Force Squad podcast. Thank you so much for checking us out. Follow us on Twitter at Bro Force Squad. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere you find podcasts. If you type in Bro Force Squad as 3 separate words, and check out everything, our top 100 list, voting for the Broscars, all of our content, and all the links to everything that we posted on our website, broforsquad.com. Till next time, we'll see you at the movies.
I'm excited about the fan vote for Broscars.
Yeah, I hope they get it right, fans.
I mean, they will get it wrong.
We should have one random category like best sound mixing. But I don't think this...
I don't.